Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Our topic this morning is in the fullness of life. And I want to begin by sharing a story that the Buddha himself is said to have shared. And here it is. It's about a man who's making his way through the jungle, and he finds himself face to face with a tiger. The tiger takes a big breath, and the man realizes he better get the hell out of there. So he starts running, and the tiger starts chasing after him, and then the only thing he sees, he's at a precipice, but there's a vine. So he grabs onto the vine, and there he is hanging. He looks down to see how he can get down, but there is another tiger. He looks up to the top of the vine, and there are two really cute mice. A white one and a black one. And what are they doing? They're chewing on the vine. The man, all of a sudden, however, he notices the most beautiful strawberry hanging on this vine. He grabs the strawberry and he eats it. How sweet it tasted. That's the end of the story. What do we think the Buddha's lesson to us was in that story? Anybody? I'm sorry? This is the moment. I did a better lesson.
You should have given the strawberry to the mice.
He should have given the strawberry to Mike trying to weigh out, yes. Well, for anybody else? Yes.
Nothing tastes better as when you're going to die.
Nothing tastes better as when you're going to die. Didn't pray you were going to say that. To me, the first lesson is that life is hard. Life is hard. Now, I know we teach here that life is good. I believe that life is good, but you know what? It's hard sometimes, isn't it? Anybody having a tough time in their life sometimes? Especially if you live passionately, there are times where life is going to be hard. And the Buddha wants us to know that. However, what the Buddha, I think, is telling us too, that in the midst of even the greatest chaos, there are those symbols, those experiences, those opportunities, those strawberries that are a bridge to the sacred, a bridge to the meaningful, a bridge to the meaning of life itself. So those strawberries out there, and sometimes we even have to be in the midst of great activity to be able to spot them. But to be a true Buddhist, I think that Buddha is teaching us, is to not have a statue made of you that is put in a Chinese restaurant. It is to be what Buddha means, to be awake, to be an awakened one. So to truly be a Buddhist, I think, according to the Buddha, is to be able to not just see the strawberry, but be aware that it's there. To know not to save it for later or to let it pass, but to eat it, to taste it, and to enjoy it. That even in the midst of chaos in your life, there is still always present the fullness of life if you can do your own work to be present to what it can be. That's what I want to talk about this morning, is how to live in the fullness of life. And for me, it's often hard because I often find myself living in the busyness of life. Anyone here living in the busyness of life? It's interesting because in a way they're opposites, and yet there's a fine line between them. Because again, sometimes in order to pick the strawberry out, there has to be a lot going on. And life, whether we are aware of it or not, always has all sorts of stuff going on, whether it's just a lot on your activity list or just recognizing that we're on a planet spaceship hurling through the cosmos. There's a lot of activity taking place. But for me, the difference between busyness and fullness is that busyness is all about doing. When I am living in busyness, I'm just trying to get things done. My God is my to-do list, and I've got to get the to-do list done. Why? So I can get to the next to-do list. It's fruitless. It's just about getting things done. And I don't know about you, but I would prefer the purpose of my life not just to be about fulfilling a grocery list. To me, living in the fullness of life is about focusing on who I'm being in the world, on how I want to show up and to be listening, aware, and present to those everyday miracles that connect me with God, that connect me with the sacred. For me, a perfect example of the difference between living in busyness or living in the fullness of life is Thanksgiving dinner. When I'm living in busyness, I grab my plate and I fill it up as much as I can. I have to get as much on my plate as possible. It doesn't matter if the turkey is sticking in the Jell-O salad and there's cranberry sauce all over the mashed potatoes. I've got to get as much on my plate as possible, and I take that plate, and as I'm going to sit down, I'm not thinking about what's on my plate. I'm thinking about all the stuff that I wasn't able to fit on my plate. And I sit down, and I eat it so quickly, I hardly even taste it. And I go back and get more. And I go back and get more. Not only way beyond being full at this point, but to the point of just being shut down completely. Now, don't some of us live our lives that way? We get our empty plate, but we fill it up. Fill it up all the way. And we don't focus even what's on the plate. We even get caught up thinking about everything that we weren't able to fit on there and get done. And we eat it and eat it and eat it until we can't take any more, and we get burnt out and we're just done. Anyone ever live their life like that? Yeah. To live in the fullness of life is to take your plate and to always commit to leaving some room open on it. It's to get a little bit of everything that you like and enjoy, and to truly appreciate it without focusing on what's not there. It's sitting down, hopefully with loved ones, but no matter what the noise is taking place, eating it in the spirit of silence, in that spirit of gratitude and thanksgiving. It's a very subtle difference. It's a very fine line, but it's a very important one between living in busyness and living in the fullness of your life. I don't know about you, but it is a busy time for me.
Yeah.
The holiday season, it is, yeah. April and I are congratulating ourselves on the brilliant idea of putting a wedding right in the middle of the holiday season. And, there's a lot going on, but I know that more so than getting it all done, what I want to be able to do is to enjoy it. I want to be able to be present to the gifts that are available to me, to the preciousness of the time. And I think that was part of the Buddha's message in the story too, is it doesn't matter what is going on in your life, but appreciate the present. Because there's something about that strawberry too that's transitory. It won't always be there. You have to be ready for those opportunities in your life to connect with the sacred. Enjoy them fully without trying to hang on to them, strangle them, or to run away from them. When I was a teenager, something that really got me set on my spiritual path was practicing the I Ching. Anyone ever practiced the I Ching here? It's an ancient Chinese oracle. It's also called the Book of Changes. And the way I did is you would throw coins, and there are these 64 different hexagrams that you can draw that include Confucius wisdom and Taoist wisdom, and it's all about how the changes in nature are reflected in our own lives. And the hexagram I would always love landing on was called abundance, or the fullness, or in some interpretations, the zenith. And it was an interesting question that it poses: how do we live in those times in our lives where there's the most going on, where there's the most abundance, where there's the most fullness? And I love the advice that the I Ching gives. It says, in order to live life in abundance, one must be like the midday sun. Isn't that nice? We don't see it outside right now. But be like the midday sun. I think this is important advice in our lives. Because the midday sun doesn't think to itself, oh my goodness, I'm about to set. I've got to hold on to this. Or, oh shoot, I've got to get up in the morning. No, it just shines. And there are times to be like a setting sun in our lives, letting things go, putting things to rest, opening up to new possibilities. And then there are times to be like a rising sun in our lives, to see what is new to be unearthed, to begin and renew again. But a time of abundance and fullness is not one of those times. When we're in the fullness of life, it's important to fully be present, to allow our rays and our abundance to shine without meddling with it. The I Ching also tells us to just ride the wave, to just go with the flow. That if you meddle with your abundance and try to save some for later, it will decrease. That if you try to rush through it, it will decrease. But if you allow yourself to be fully present, then and only then can you reap the rewards of the fullness of life. Since it's been such a full time in my life, I've had a little prayer and affirmation I've been saying, and you may want to take it on for yourself too, but it goes like this. I am at peace in the fullness of life. I am centered in the fullness of life. I am at ease in the fullness of life. Does that sound like a good prayer for you too? You want to say it with me? I am at peace in the fullness of life. I am centered in the fullness of life. I am at ease in the fullness of life. Well done. There's something powerful in that prayer for me because it reminds me that although I am a human being and having a spiritual experience, or a spiritual being having a human one, or however the hell we're saying it these days, that I live in two worlds. The human world, which is often unpredictable, and yet also one of inner reality that is up to me to cultivate, in which I am always one with something sacred and true. And then when I'm able to cultivate this life and this truth, no one or no thing can ever take it away from me. When you know your truth, no one can take it away from you. When you know your freedom, no one can take it away from you. When you know your authenticity, no one can take it away from you. And so living centered, even in the midst of chaotic activity, I can still be at peace. I can still be at one. I can still be centered. Another way for me, I'm able to track if I'm living in an alignment with busyness or with fullness is when I do my daily meditations. Everyone here have a meditation practice? And again, it's not meant to be some holy exercise for me. It's that time where I shut up and listen and appreciate my life. That's what meditation is for me. It's just being present and listening and appreciating. And I know that I'm living in the fullness of life when I'm able to kind of get in touch with that inner reality of my being, where I'm able to recognize that I'm in the midst of a beautiful planet Earth with so much good and so many lovely and beautiful people. Then I'm in touch with the fullness of life. When I'm in alignment with busyness, I practice something that I would call oh shoot meditation. Or you can put in your own word, the oh something else meditation. And it goes something like this. I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to call Pam. I make a note and I go back down. Oh shoot, I forgot to have a dentist appointment tomorrow. I can't believe it. You know, and again, it's about living in alignment with that constant to-do list. And when your God is a to-do list, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. But when your God is that sense of the sacred within yourself, nothing or no one can take it away from you. That's what I love about what a spiritual practice has offered me. It's that ability to be in those two worlds. It's that ability that even when things are hard in my life, I can say, you know what? Things aren't okay right now. But you know what? I'm okay. You know what? I'm sad or I'm angry about this happening. But you know what? Deep down, I'm so grateful and glad to be alive. Is that a contradiction? No. I don't think so. Because we can both fully experience the good and the not so good in our lives, and yet still proclaim and live proudly in the truth of who we are, regardless of what is taking place in our lives. This past week I've been thinking often about the great words from Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman, a great theologian who overcame much adversity in his life, and one of his most famous pieces is a meditation he wrote about keeping fresh before him the moments of his high resolve. even in the midst of chaotic activity. And it goes like this. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. Don't we plant those little memories of spirit to remind ourselves with when we get lost? But I had forgotten. At the time it was full orbed, glorious and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure that it would illumine my path for all the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey. Details, lower-level demands, all kinds of cross-currents. Nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. It's a great reminder for each of us to remind ourselves and ask ourselves, to which and to that am I committed? To what am I truly committed to in my life? Is it getting all the stuff done? Is it just surviving another day? Or is it what is most sacred and powerful and meaningful in my life? Living in fullness, like I said, isn't about everything we have to do. It's who we're called to be. And so with that, I think it's a good suggestion that we wake up each day and not just say, what do I have to do today? But who am I called to become today? Who am I called to be in my life? And what I can tell you is in my life, every regret I have is caught up in this need to do. Because when everything's about a to-do list, I don't always have to be loving. I can be mean, twisted, pushy, rushing. All these things I regret getting caught up in the belief that my God is the to-do list. But I have never regretted being and becoming who I'm called to be. I've never regretted being kind to someone. I've never regretted being patient. I've never regretted being compassionate or loving, even if I got burned. I've never regretted those things. And so I think it's so wise if we can bring that into our daily practice, especially when things are difficult. Not just what am I called to do, but who am I called to be? And that's how we live in the fullness of life. We live in the fullness of life by always being ready for the strawberry and to be willing to eat it as soon as we see it. We do it by always leaving room open on our plate, never overfilling our time, always being ready. We do it by upkeeping and being open to those moments of our high resolve. And we ask ourselves, who am I to be? And we seek to be it with the most clarity, equanimity, and composure that we can. So just in a prayerful closing moment, I invite you to join me, if you so choose, in just being aware again of that inner life that does not trump the outward life, but simply allows us to be in the world, but not of its chaos, its uncertainty, its lack of clarity, but to be from that truth in ourselves, which brings forth clarity, which brings forth love, which brings forth authenticity, so that we may better be at one within ourselves, with those around us, and with the world that we live in. Knowing and embracing this one now, may we continue to listen to its resolve, to listen to its grace, to listen to its forgiveness, to its ever-leading harmony. I am so grateful. I am so grateful. I am so grateful. And so it is.
So
So thanks for your time, everyone, this morning.